today I'm going to do a few literacy activities linked to the story Sharing a Shell. Hi everybody, today I am going to talk about some literacy activities that you can do at home using this story here. So the story is Sharing a Shell and it's by Julia Donaldson. Okay, and it's a lovely, lovely story. I don't recommend you try and do all the activities in one. I recommend you do them spread out and you just keep reading the story. So the first thing I recommend that you do is you read it. So you can read it to your child if you've got it at home. If you haven't got it at home, then you can go on YouTube and there's plenty of videos of people reading the story. Okay, so you can go on there, you can read it through and make sure your child understands it. So I'd like you to ask your child some questions. So you might pick a page in the story and you might say, how do you think the crab felt? Because the crab, nobody would share a shell with the crab. So how do you think the crab felt? Why wouldn't the other people share with the crab? Okay? Ooh, how do you think the crab feels here? So you can look through the story, ask your children how they feel, talk about what sharing is. Well, what's sharing? Who do you share with at home? How do you share? So you can talk about all those different things. So make sure your child understands the story. So the first activity, which most of Julia Donaldson's books really lend themselves to, is rhyming. Rhyming is part of the EYFS curriculum. So rhyming is the part of the curriculum that trips a lot of children up because it is quite difficult. So I think the more we practice it, the better. So take the story, read a little bit of the story and say, ooh, can you tell me which words rhyme? So for example, what can this blob thing be? Go away, blob, whoever you are. You can't share a shell with me. So the two words in that is be and me. Okay, so you would talk about be and me. If your child doesn't know what rhyming means, I would recommend going on to BBC Bite Size. Okay, and it's just a little video that explains what rhyming is. So it says that rhyming are words that sound the same. So with be and me, okay, they've got the same ending. They both end in the E sound, okay? So you could have cat, mat, they end in the at sound. Also bat, rat, okay? You can hear the at. They all end in the same sound, so they have the same sound, okay? So there's lots of good resources on BBC Bite Size here, so have a little go at that. I'm sure they would enjoy it. So once your children know what rhyming is, you can go on to the activity. So you can actually choose a word. So I chose shell. Okay, you can get them to write shell on a big piece of paper and then write as many words as they can come up with that rhyme with shell. So I had a little think: tell, yell, spell, bell, smell. Okay, they all end in the L sound. Okay, so that was my little activity. So have a go at that at home. Like I say, I wouldn't recommend you do all of them together, but have a little go at that activity because rhyming is in the EYFS curriculum and it's, like I say, quite tricky for some children. But use the story, go, right, here is a word I want you to rhyme stuff with, stare. Okay, how many words? Your children may come up with a few nonsense words, but you could get out a dictionary and check to see if they're actual words. So activity number 2. So you could talk to your child about sharing. I think it's a brilliant book to do that. And sharing is important, and I think at school they get a lot of input about sharing because they're with a lot of other children and they've got to learn how to share with other children. So talk about why sharing is important, and then you could write a set of rules for sharing. So it could just be sharing rules. Okay, so you might say to your children, we're going to write some rules for sharing. Okay, so like I said at the top, you could have sharing rules. Get your children when they're writing to sound out every word. Don't write it for them. So we want sh, Oh, some of you may have noticed that I've not spelled share properly. I've used my phase 3 phonics, okay? I haven't learnt the way to do share properly. So that's why I've written it like that. So they know the sound, the sound and the sh. So sharing rules. So rules. They may write it like that because they know the sound. So but they can read that back. So you can correct them, but let them use their phonics sound. So sharing rules. What might my first one be? Yeah, so it could be listen to each other, because if you're not listening to what the other person wants, how are you meant to share? So number 1, listen, okay? And then you can write your list like that. So remember, when writing with your children, get them to do their capital letters, finger spaces, full stops, and let them sound out. I know it's so hard because you're going, that's not spelled right, but they're applying their phonics, and that is what we want to see at reception. Ing, brilliant, okay? That is what we want to see. So that is something you could do. So like I said, don't try and do all these activities at once. So, activity number 3. So this one is a little bit trickier. So they have to know the story quite well. And I know a lot of children are starting to learn story language. So you could get your child to rewrite the story. You could get them to change the story. So they might change the main character, or they might write something completely different about sharing. So it doesn't have to be about that character in the story. It can be as an imaginative as they want. So they've got to use some story language. So I teach my children a few key story language. So I teach them how to open. So they might open one day. Okay? They might do one sunny day, one evening, okay? But that tends to be how we open our stories. Then I give them a few different sentence openers. So they could have then, they could have next, they could have after. Okay, they could also have a bit more tricky stuff, so a moment later. Okay, they could have out of the corner of my eye I saw, behind the trees there was. Okay, but these are the quite common ones. And then I tend to ask my children to end with fine. Sorry for my writing, I've run out of room there. So I always start with something like one day or one early morning, and then I have all these for a few sentences. These aren't long stories, they're quite short, and then we end it with finally. So it could be finally they lived happily ever after, which children love to write, or finally they went home, happens a lot. Okay, so good luck. If you want any advice, you know where I am with writing. I've got a few top tips for writing. So, the first thing they have to do is say their sentence out loud. If they can't say it, they're not going to be able to write it. So they've got to orally practice their sentence. So get them to say it out loud, you repeat it back to them, they repeat it back to you. Then they're going to sound out every single word. Don't do it for them, let them do it. They can use the phonics boards that you can get off Twinkle and sound out every single word. And they should know some tricky words like and, is, the. Okay, so you could use that. Then finger spaces, we need them, otherwise you're not going to be able to read it back. So remind them to do their finger spaces in between each word. Then we need our capital letters, we need our full stop, and just check it makes sense. So you might read it back to them and they'll go, oh, that didn't make sense, because they've missed out like and or is or it. Okay, so a huge good luck. I hope you enjoy some of these activities and let me know how you get on. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you've got any questions for me, just remember, pop it in the comments section. I'd love to hear from you.